I making this video part 2 of the book of Isaiah. What is it about? And in part 1 I have talked about the first 6 chapters, with the first 5 generally being about the problem of sin and disobedience, and chapter 6 being about the plan to restore righteousness. Just one more time, I would strongly encourage you to be familiar with chapter 6, because I see it as the cornerstone for the writing of Isaiah. Now I would like to talk about chapter 7, and chapter 7 through 12 are another significant section having to do with the same topic, the problem of sin and disobedience and the plan to restore righteousness. In chapter 7, we just kind of a summary of chapter 7. It opens with, the land of Syria and Ephraim, or Ephraim often refers to Israel as a whole because it, contained their centers of religious worship and so forth. So I'm going to say Syria and Israel got together. They were confederate, and they decided to jump on Judah. Now the people of Judah were afraid, and Isaiah was instructed to go out and meet Ahaz and to encourage him. And so Isaiah goes out and meets Ahaz, and he said, "This thing will not happen. It will not come to pass." And then Isaiah says to Ahaz, King Ahaz, "Ask the Lord for a sign, whether it be in the depths below or the heights above." And Ahaz says, the king Ahaz, he says, "I will not ask. I will not put the Lord to the test." And Isaiah says, "Come on, here now. You're wearying the Almighty." And he says, "Therefore the Almighty himself will give you a sign." A sign of what? A sign of what? A sign that the enemy plans will not happen. They will not come to pass. The sign that Israel and Syria are not going to come and defeat Judah. So, what is this sign that he gives? And the sign is the familiar sign of Emmanuel. Now, I want to focus in on this for a minute, because this is one of the main reasons that I'm covering the book of Isaiah. What is it about? Who is it about? Who wrote it? Those sorts of things. And in Matthew, I think it's chapter 16, I'm not sure, but in the book of Matthew, it makes specific reference to Isaiah chapter 7, verse 14, and it says that a virgin will conceive and bear a son, and she shall call his name Emmanuel, and he will save his people from their sins, and so on. And I want to test that claim and see if it is valid. Now, you have to, bear with me here, because the vast majority of people that will even be watching this video are going to be Christians, and so I just want to plead with you. Hear me out here, and don't shut this off just because I'm saying that the New Testament could be wrong, but let's just check it. Let's just check it. And so obviously Matthew says it is. And let's just kind of look at Matthew. He says that a virgin will conceive and bear a son, and his name will be called, she will call him Emmanuel, being interpreted, God is with us. And so this has kind of got some high Christological implications here. And note that the claim that the passage in Matthew has on this verse in Isaiah hinges on the supernatural element and nothing else. It hinges on the supernatural and nothing else. The virgin will conceive. Now, if you go to 7:14 and we pick up, now Isaiah says, okay, the Lord himself will give you a sign. This is the sign. He says that the young woman, now that's another point I don't want to harp on too long, but anyway, the Alma in Hebrew is young woman. That's perfectly clear. There are references in the Old Testament where it uses Alma, and it's perfectly clear that it's not talking about a virgin. They have a word in Hebrew for virgin. It's Bethula, something like that. and they did not use that word here. So it says the young woman is or will be with child. I've seen it rendered different ways, and I don't have a dog in the fight of whether she is or will be with child. But what I do see is that there is the young woman is or will be with child. And so there was a definite woman, and she is going to have a baby, and she's going to call his name Emmanuel. Now think about it just a second. If Isaiah stood there and he said, you know, some unknown woman is going to get pregnant, let's just don't even say she's a virgin, or conceived as a virgin. Let's just say that some woman is going to get pregnant, she's going to call his name Emmanuel. Well, it wouldn't have any relevance to the people standing there listening to Isaiah speak for the Almighty God. It only has relevance if there's a woman there and he says, that woman is going to conceive, or she is pregnant or something, and she's going to have a baby named, and she's going to call his name Emmanuel. Now, see, there's nothing supernatural about that. And you might even say, well, what kind of sign is that? So she's going to have a baby. So she is pregnant. The point is the rest of the chapter. And if we look at the continuing part of the chapter, it says, butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good, which has absolutely no reference to Jesus. It doesn't fit what we're taught about Jesus, and there's no relevance there to Jesus. For before the child shall know to refuse evil and choose good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both their kings. That's how it's rendered in the King James anyway. Other versions, kind of lead you to believe that it's the people who are going to be taken away before the child shall learn to refuse evil and choose the good. Again, this doesn't fit what we're taught of Jesus, that he was perfect. And here, again, if this woman was there and they said she's going to be pregnant and have a baby, what kind of sign is that? The sign is what follows that. They said, okay, this woman is going to have a baby, and before this baby can do this and that, this thing is going to happen. That's the sign. That's the sign given in verse 16, 7:16. Go back and read it. And it goes on, and it says that the Assyrians are going to come and going to use them, and they're going to, whip up on Syria and Israel, and, all these certain things are going to ensue and happen. And without going and reading all that, the main thing I want you to see is the New Testament, the claim that it has on 7:14 is it hinges on the supernatural element and nothing else. And if we read in Isaiah chapter 7, what we see no supernatural element. We see Alma, we don't see Bethula, and we find a specific sign given. This woman right here, she's going to have a baby, and she's going to call him this. And before he's able to reject the bad and choose the good, this thing's going to happen. So that puts a timeline to it. And let's just say, we can get into, for instance, the age of accountability. Before a child is able to recognize right and wrong, this is going to happen. And, you might say, how about 12 years old? Well, if you go back and you look at the sign, the sign probably happened in about 740. If you go back and you study history, not 740, about 734. Well, in two years after that, both the kings, the king of Assyria, the king of Syria, not Assyria, but Syria, and the king of Israel, both were killed. And 2 years later, after this sign was given, after Isaiah and Ahaz were standing there. So that was 2 years later, so the baby would have been about 1, so it didn't really seem like it'd be about that. But like I say, most versions indicate that the people will be removed instead of the kings being removed. And that happened in kind of in waves. It happened it gradually happened. And the last of the deportations by the king of Assyria, we have 3 kings. Assyria is up kind of northeast here, and he comes down and he, takes over Syria, and he also comes down and takes over Ephraim, or Israel, as a nation. And, he kills the kings, with various means, not necessarily directly, but he takes the people away. And the last of these deportations took place in something like 720 or something like that. But anyway, you can see these deportations would make this, that took place over a period of about 12 years, making the child, 11, 12 years old, age of accountability. So it kind of fits there. And so I'm kind of saying that, there's kind of a fulfillment here, or at least there's a situation that fits what it says here. But I can also say that there's no relevance whatsoever to Jesus through this sign. The sign isn't 7:14 start and stop. The sign is essentially this whole ending of chapter 7, verse 14 on through 25. So I'd encourage you to read that. And, on the first part of the video, I had chapters 1 through 5, and then mentioned verse 6 as being significant. Here I'm talking about chapter 7. If you read chapter 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, what you see is a significant presence of the king of Assyria for a specific purpose, for, getting the people back in line, for removing the dross and, creating the situation spoken of in chapter 6. So I say that the book of Isaiah is about the refining of the people of Israel and Judah, and that furthermore that the reference in 7:14 of Emmanuel doesn't have anything to do with Jesus. This isn't to degrade Jesus in any way necessarily. It's just to say that this claim that Matthew makes on 7:14 is invalid because nothing here fits Jesus. We have supernatural claim of virgin birth, virgin conception, that isn't present in this writing, and what we do have in this is a sign that is relevant to that time period back whenever Isaiah was speaking to Ahaz. All right.